Hey, welcome to your Gemini horoscopes for the week of the 13th through the 20th. And there's a whole lot of looking backwards this week. And what's interesting about that is Vespa is still in Gemini currently, bringing that focus on security. Vespa is retrograde still this week. So that sort of looking back, a lot of times I feel we look back on, especially when we're going through current difficulties in our life, we look back searching for times when we did feel that security, when things were good, if that makes sense. And I feel like this time around might be a little bit different. You might actually be looking at that situation for what it is and not necessarily what you've created it to be. And this is a big problem with looking back into the past is we don't always look at it in the way that it actually was. We look at it in terms of our perception in the moment, at the time, what we thought our perception was. There's various different things that kind of garble it. So we're not really looking at it exactly the way that maybe it actually was. And the other thing too is, especially if you're looking back into childhood, you're looking at it through a child's eyes, through a child's perception and not an adult's perception. And the issue with that is that children don't really always know exactly what's going on. Children tend to interpret what they see, but not necessarily in an adult way. And that becomes a problem because you're looking at a situation that you thought was secure. It turned out to be not very secure at all. So I kind of feel like this week, in terms of there's a couple of things that come up with that. One is going back to a place that you seem to constantly go back to when you're looking for security and realizing that it wasn't exactly what you thought it was. But also, there's an element of looking at that past security with truthful eyes and not necessarily rose-colored glasses. So if you were actually, normally you look at it and it's just so wonderful and everything was great. And then all of a sudden you realize that maybe you need to look at it in a different way. And when you do that, it spins the story in a completely different way, doesn't it? It puts it in a completely different compartment there where you can sort of maybe disconnect from wanting to be back to that space and be a little bit more focused on how to create that for yourself, if that makes sense. The other thing that I think is really interesting about this is also looking into the past for in a more productive way, if that makes sense. In terms of looking back at your past adulthood, for example, and looking back at the times where you provided security for yourself or you found yourself in a place that was a little bit more secure, it's always a good idea to look back into the past for ideas of using things that did work. Not everything is going to work now that worked then, but we do benefit from using different techniques that we have used in the past. We do benefit from that at times, but not always. So it's good to look back and to get some ideas of different things that maybe you did before that you could jump on again and see if that might work. And it's not just about, security encompasses a lot of different things. We're talking about job security. We're talking about financial security, something that nobody in the world can seem to find these days because everything is so expensive. But we're also talking about security in our relationships. We're talking about security in ourselves. I am thinking of a Gemini right now who spent last year just one surgery after another. And that creates a lot of insecurity because now you're not functioning the way that you maybe used to before you had the surgeries. So there's security is not just one thing. It encompasses so many different aspects of our life, way more, I think, than we really realize it does. And so going back, we tend to get stuck on, gosh, I wish I was young and my body worked the way that it did when I was in my 20s. But then you can also find little instances where maybe you did get injured and there was a certain thing that you did that did help with that, that can maybe help you with your current injury, at least to help you work around that injury now. So the past has some gems that we can learn from, but it also has the tendency to suck us in, tell us stories, and make us feel less motivated and in many cases less powerful over our realities now. And the point is that we want to balance that out so that the past is helpful. It reminds us of different things that we did do in order to motivate us now to get those things accomplished, but it also has a dark side too. And that's where we want to maintain and make sure that we're looking at it in the right perspective. So that's what I have for you guys this week. If you love your horoscopes, do consider sending a tip or donation through my coffee link, which is down there beneath this video. I'd really appreciate that. Appreciate all the coffee love. I do. I'm Melissa Bruce, Heavy Metal Psychic. I will see you guys next week. And in the meantime, you guys make it a great week because it is absolutely in your power to do so. You guys have a great one. I will see you next week.